Apologies for ending late. We will be going back into closed session after the meeting concludes. Can I have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Narenheim.
Here.
Councilmember Kalijevic.
Here.
Councilmember Obaji.
Here.
Councilmember Barrett.
Here.
Mayor Brown is absent, and Mayor Pro Tem Lowenstein.
Here. Mr. Barrett, just confirming that you posted the agenda at your remote location?
Confirmed.
Thank you. Thank you. Can I get an announcement of any closed session actions?
Yes, one announcement. Brandy Forbes, our Community Development Director, joined us for the cases involving items F5 through F8.
Okay, great. Thank you. I'll now call to order a regular meeting of the Redondo Beach City Council. Can I get a roll call, please?
Councilmember Narenheim.
Here.
Councilmember Kalijevic.
Here.
Councilmember Obaji.
Here.
Councilmember Barrett.
Here.
Mayor Brown is absent, and Mayor Pro Tem Lowenstein.
Here. If you'd rise for the salute to the flag, please. And a moment of silence afterwards. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, after God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. We'll start off with, we have no presentations or proclamations. We'll start off with announcements. Councilmember Narenheim.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Lowenstein. So, yes, 4th of July on Avenue I sign. Want to thank Jeff Ginsburg and Mike Ward for the fantastic concert that they threw on Avenue I. I wasn't there, but I heard it was a great event, and they still did well. Really happy for that, and keep Esmod beautiful because they get their name out for that. Also want to thank city staff for getting the drone show happening and working, Public Works and everything else. There's a lot of good things that happened with that. We had something, we all coalesced, made something happen, so that was really cool. I hope everyone had a great, wonderful 4th of July weekend and day. I also want to thank a lot of the Redondo Beach residents. There was a fundraiser on June 26th or something like that, I want to say, up at Palos Verdes Estates for our neighborhood initiative. And there was a lot of Redondo Beach residents, including our city attorney, Mike Webb, who was there. Councilmember Lowenstein was there. And our city treasurer was there, Eugene Solomon. A lot of residents, a lot of activists, and it was really cool to see how involved Redondo Beach residents are with local politics and moving the issues that we have locally here that we've been fighting as a council unanimously regarding local control and zoning, and now taking that next step. There weren't as many residents from PV or Torrance or other beach cities. So really cool to see. And there's our city attorney who was there as well, answered a few questions for the event. And I also want to announce that in District 2, I'll let you talk about the dog stuff coming up this weekend. The dog trail.
No, you can talk about it.
So at the high school, July 22nd, coming up, 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. is the police dog show/training event. It's actually on our agenda tonight. And RBPD is hosting a blood drive this week on Thursday. I think it's done with UCLA Health. So come on down. I think it's from 10 or 11 a.m. until 4 or something like that, right in there. So come on down for that. If you haven't given blood in a while, that'd be great to show up. So thank you very much, and onwards.
Okay, Councilmember Kalijevic.
Just one quick shout out. Thank you to yourself, actually, Mayor Pro Tem, and Public Works, Mike Klein. I don't think he's out here, but they installed some workout equipment that you tipped us off to out at Dominguez Park. I think it's being installed, the pads were poured, and it'll be exciting to see it out there. So I hope everyone enjoys it.
I want to give thanks to Dolores Starr and Alex Starr. Dolores works at Murad, and they're the ones who donated the equipment. So thank you to them. Councilmember Obaji.
All right, I want to give a shout out to Community Services, Michelle Pineda in particular, on a great 4th of July at the Seaside Lagoon. There was face painting there. There was a great DJ playing family appropriate music that the kids are dancing to. There was ice machine, delicious ice machine at that. So really great 4th of July down there. And thank you to the chief for organizing the flyover. My 3-year-old daughter was able to count the 4 airplanes in the first squadron that flew over, so I was proud of her for that, and that was beautiful to see. Lastly, my community meeting will be on July 19th, 2023. That's next not this Wednesday, but the Wednesday after that. We'll have Director of Public Works Ted Simon there. I believe Councilmember Kalajerovich may make a cameo, and I'll review some of the stuff, allocations that we got in the budget. We'll look at traffic safety improvements on Grant and aviation. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Barrett.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I wanted to announce I am also going to be having a community meeting next Wednesday, July 19th at the Redondo Beach Performing Arts Center at 6 p.m. Looking forward to it. A lot to connect on with residents of District 5 and elsewhere on what's been happening and is going to be happening in the city. So really looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you. As far as announcements for myself, there will be no District 2 community meeting in July. We're going to give people a month off after an intense period for the budget. I want to also thank staff and Public Works, Community Services, everybody for the drone show. Not everybody loves drones, but also Chief Butler, thank you very much for all the work you did for that, as well as the flyovers. Not everybody loves drones. I thought it was great, personally. I really liked it. Of course, I miss fireworks. We all love fireworks. Some people prefer drones because of the environmental reasons or whatever the reasons might be for sound. I think we made lemonade out of lemons, for sure. And hopefully, by the time next year rolls around, we'll have more advance notice and preparation for that. So, but thanks for everything you guys have done. The last thing is, this is my first meeting as the Mayor Pro Tem running the meetings. I talked to one of the chairs of our commissions, the Planning Commission, and he suggested something that I think I'd like to implement with your acquiescence, and that is we look at, starting in August, and I'll tell you why in a second, perhaps moving the meeting along, and that being we have each council member would get 5 minutes to speak on a topic. Assuming nobody else is behind them, you can continue speaking. I'll have a timer. You could continue speaking until somebody else raises their hand. And then after that person's done and no one else is done, that person who spoke originally can go back and speak. And the reason for this is manifold. One is I want to make sure everybody gets a say at the dais. Second reason is our meetings have gone really long. I know nobody would be incredibly disappointed to see that our meetings are a little bit shorter for a couple reasons. One is I'm concerned about staff staying very late, and they have families and they have to be here too. And then the third thing is I'm most concerned that the public is not getting a chance to participate, especially as the meetings run till 11:30, 12, 12:30 at night. And I think that's the most important thing that we do here is make sure that the public has a say in things. So if you're willing, and I hope you are, I'd like to give this a shot. We can always tweak the rules. We can make it 6 minutes. We can make it 5 minutes. We can go back to the way we do it now. But from what I understand, it was accepted very well among Planning Commission, and everybody has a chance to move along, say what they'd like to say, get the chance. And a lot of what you can say can be said in 5 minutes. So we'll see how this goes. I will not be here next week. Unfortunately, I had a trip planned, or fortunately, I had a trip planned to Europe, and I didn't realize that we would be having a third meeting in July. Normally, we do not have one on the fourth week of July, but because of the holiday this year, we do. And that is the commission meeting. So I will be returning for the August 1st meeting. And so next week, you all will decide who will run the meetings. So
you may want to make a referral to staff to bring back your city council rules at the August 1st.
you mean as an agenda item?
Yeah, because you have to change your council rules.
May want to do that. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe we won't do that. I don't, we'll have to say, let me think about that. I'll have to talk to you.
Okay.
Otherwise, I'll- Okay, so thank you. Okay, moving right along, can I get an approval, a motion to approve the order of the agenda, please?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, anybody opposed? Okay, moving right along. Agency recess. We have a meeting, regular meeting of the Community Finance Authority. Could we have a roll call, please?
Yes. Member Narenheim,
Here.
Member Kalojedovich,
Here.
Member Obaji,
Here.
Member Barrett,
Here.
Chairperson Brown is absent, and Vice Chair Lowenstein.
Here, can I get a motion for approval of the order agenda, please?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any opposition? Okay, any blue folder items for this meeting?
None for this meeting.
Okay, on to the consent calendar. Anybody may pull one of the items for discussion. Councilmember Nierenheim, do you have anything to pull?
I do not. Thank you, sir.
Councilmember Kalojedovich,
Nope.
Councilmember Obaji,
I did not.
and Councilmember Barrett.
No.
Okay, does anybody from the public want to pull any of the items? This is for the Community Financing Authority. Okay, seeing nobody is,
We have no one on Zoom and no e-comments.
okay, thank you. Then may I get a motion to approve consent calendar items C1 through C4, please?
Motion to approve consent calendar items.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Okay, thank you. Next on to public participation on non-agenda items. Does anybody here like to speak to any item that is not on the agenda tonight? You have 3 minutes to speak. It is your chance to speak on anything, whether it's community finance related or not. You're welcome to. We will still have non-agenda items in the regular meeting. Okay, anybody on?
And no one on Zoom, no e-comments.
Okay, great. Thank you. We have no hearings tonight, so can I get anybody have any referrals to staff or new items? Okay, seeing none, can I get a motion to adjourn the meeting to August 1st of the Community Finance Authority?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Okay, thank you. Okay, now we're back to the regular meeting of the Redondo Beach City Council. May I get a roll call, please?
Councilmember Narenheim,
Here.
Councilmember Kalojedovich,
Here.
Councilmember Obaji,
Here.
Councilmember Barrett,
Here.
Mayor Brown is absent, and Mayor Pro Tem Lowenstein.
Here. Thank you. Do we have any blue folder items for this evening?
We do have one blue folder item, public communications for non-agenda items.
Okay, great. May I get a motion to accept that?
Motion to accept the blue folder item.
Second.
Okay, anybody opposed? Okay, thank you. Now on to consent calendar items. Mr. Narenheim, would you like to pull any of the consent calendar items?
I have nothing to pull. Thank you, sir.
Councilmember Kalojedovich.
None, thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Obaji.
None, but I did want to, on H10, I wanted to commend Captain Fizelich for being consummate professional in these negotiations and for being candid and bringing them to a swift close.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Barrett.
None.
Okay, and I have none. So may I get a motion to approve items H1 through H10, please?
So moved.
Second.
Okay,
And just for the record, we have no comments for consent calendar.
thank you. Would anybody in the public like to speak to any of the consent calendar items? Okay. All those in favor, H1 through H10?
Aye.
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 Okay.
I was like, wait, what?
Anybody opposed? Okay.
Scott, whatever.
Mr. Barrett, are you in favor or opposed to H1 through H10 consent calendar
I
items?
said, yeah, I
Okay.
said aye.
Okay, and I myself, next time we'll do a roll call vote since he's remote, so. Okay, all items passed 5-0, thank you.
Can I have a couple to read?
Yes,
Okay, adopt by title only resolution number CC-2307-065, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Redondo Beach, California, approving the suspension of preferential parking hours in the Vincent and Vincent II preferential parking districts on July 22nd, 2023, from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. adopt by title only resolution number CC-2307-066, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Redondo Beach, California, adopting a memorandum of understanding between the City of Redondo Beach and the Redondo Beach Police Officers Association Police Management Unit from January 1st, 2023 through December 31st, 2025. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Next on is item J, public participation on non-agenda items. We have some cards already. So we will call the cards first, and then anybody, it's now 6:29. We will have 30 minutes for this, so we will give this to 6:59. So we will call the cards first. Anybody that wants to speak afterwards, whether it is in person or on Zoom, can raise their hand on Zoom, and we will call on them. So the first two people I have, the first one is Ron Morocco, and then after Ron is Holly Osborne. Mr. Morocco.
Motion to receive and file.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Members of the council, congratulations, Mayor Pro Tem, for your appointment. I came here last month on June 13th to tell you about a problem with cancellation of meetings. And I've done some follow-up since then. I wanted to report to you back on that, as well as suggest a proposal that I think will actually help resolve the problem. I came here on June 13th wanting to participate in a meeting with the Parks and Recs on June 14th. On June 15th, I put in a public records request to find out who's responsible. It should have been a real simple request. We are now on the second extension, and I'm anticipating getting a response by July 21st. So that's kind of where that is. Well, I've done some research in the meantime, and the first thing you'll see in the sheets that I gave you, there's 5 pages, is the actual statute that requires regular meetings of these commissions. And there is, as contrary to what Councilmember Barrett said the last time I was here, there really isn't much flexibility built into this this ordinance. What really came in handy was that the July 4th meeting of the council actually was canceled, and on the second page, you will see the notes that came out from that. And I think that kind of sets the model, which can be applied to everything else. On the third page, I went back and reviewed a number of the meetings that were canceled. There's over a dozen for 2023 already. There's some that was canceled yesterday. The only one that I'm aware of for lack of business was that Parks and Recs Commission. And when I get to the part about what's my proposal, you will see that I think I've addressed it. So what I would like to propose is that any meeting that's canceled of a commission is actually signed off by the city manager. He's the one that should have authority to do that, and he's the one who should be giving a report to the council with regards to any meeting that's canceled, including the date of the cancellation notice was posted, the reason for it, and whether the canceled meeting has been announced. If the meeting is canceled for a lack of quorum, then I think that the city clerk needs to do a certification that says, hey, these are the excused absences I've received. If you will notice from the schedule, you will see that there are 4 commission meetings that were canceled for lack of quorum, actually 5. One of them actually had all the forms turned in for an excused absence. So if you're going to say there's not a quorum there, you really need at least 1 person or 2 people or 3 people, enough to make that so there's no quorum. So I think that's a good resolution on it if the city clerk can do it. And she can put it in the report. The report you get now, which was
That's fine.
H6.
Okay, may motion to extend 1 minute?
Second.
Okay.
Thank you. The report that you got today, I've tracked all of them since December, and you're getting people who are following what you want, but you're not getting the people who aren't following what you want. So if you have a person that's canceling for that say they can't, for lack of quorum, you would expect at least again to see one person. So you're not getting the people who are not requesting an excused absence. Also, what I noticed, and I don't know if I'm looking in the wrong spot, but there is, the posted notice of cancellations are on the wall outside, but there's nothing in the database of Legistar that lets me see this is why a meeting was canceled. If I don't go out there and take a picture of it, I don't have a record of it. So hopefully we can add to the database somewhere in there that shows the notice of cancellation. And then I think it's appropriate for each commission to ratify cancellation at the next regular meeting. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Marocco. Holly Osborne, you're next, and after Holly is Joan Irvine.
Before you start the timer, did you guys get your blue folder items? Are they up? Are you looking at them?
No.
Open it up for you.
Okay. Okay, okay, so you can start the timer. Those guys are all ready. Okay. Good morning.
Evening.
Good evening. My name is Holly Osborne, District 5, and I spoke these words at the COG meeting yesterday, and it's about the road between Artesia and Grant and why it is unsuitable for Metro. And I want to, so everybody's on the same page, I want to hear you guys to hear what I said, because this area has kind of been neglected. All right, the two big reasons are it's not suitable or not enough room for Metro amidst all the pipelines and existing freight trains, and two, the unsuitability of the soil for digging. Okay, let's get started. To review, here's the first page of the row. It's in Lawndale. Of course, I don't see anything up there. But what is of note is that the row starts at 100 foot wide and narrows to 75 feet wide, where they built newer houses in 1980. Onto the second page, crossing Artesia into Redondo, the row starts at 75 feet wide before it widens to 100 feet wide.
1A.
Are we pausing?
I'm going to display your thing.
Continue.
Okay, all right, now on to slide 4, figure 3. Okay, I have marked the pipelines on this diagram where they are. The previous diagram did not have the pipelines. This one did. I went out and measured them myself with some help from other people. Next. We already did that. Okay.
Thank you.
So this is the plain diagram with no pipelines. Okay. Now let's go to the next one. All right. So here I put the pipelines in, and there are at least 4 that I know of. There's 2 at the west side, that's at the bottom, and 2 on the top side. Now, the 2 on the bottom of that diagram, one's Torrance Logistics, and then the other one is the Shell, and that's the one that when you get close to Grant, it's only 10 feet from the wall, and when they had the problem there and they dug, well, a great big sinkhole formed and damaged the foundation of the condo and damaged the patio of a person and took 2.5 years to repair. Nobody wants any more of that. Now, let's look at the top, the eastern side. There's a pipeline there, Shell, and there's another pipeline, Crimson, but they didn't mark it well, so I only have one marker there. And what that green stuff is, there's actually an embankment there. The row is not level. It's really only about 80 feet wide in places and even less, okay? And to see the picture, go to the next page. Oh, that was too many pages. There.
As time.
Motion to extend.
Second.
Okay, all right. So this is what, I stole this from the DEIR and modified it. There's a high embankment, the houses are way low on the row, and then the freight train is right above it. And right now the Shell is buried, and it's about 22 feet from the track center. I don't know how deep it is because I didn't dig down to check, okay? Now, Metro has indicated that they're going to put the light rail where it says 31 feet, and so go to the next one, please. Next page. Yeah. Okay, so the pipeline is already would be under there, so they have to move it. They have to shove it to the east in that teensy little area in back of those houses, and because it can't be under there, and they're going to probably damage foundations if they have to dig really close there. That's a very narrow area. Then they're going to put that massive wall in, okay? That doesn't look good either. And let me see.
That's time.
Actually, well, that's what I wanted to say, okay?
Thank
Does
you.
anybody have any clarifying questions? All right.
Thank you.
Do you mind if I use this presentation for the Metro Board or Metro higher up executives, staff?
I don't mind.
Okay, thank you.
But if you don't understand anything, you better ask me first.
I will. Believe you me, I will. Thank you, Doc.
Holly means business. So,
Yeah, okay,
Thanks, Holly.
thank you.
thanks. Joan Irvine, you're next, and after Joan will be Nikki Negretti Mitchell.
Joan Irvine, District 1, Mayor Pro Tem, City Council, City staff, and Redondo residents who are here and those who are watching from their homes. I want to thank everyone who helped Keep the Esplanade Beautiful 4th of July fireworks at Avenue I a success. Approximately 1,000 people attended this fundraiser, and we're glad we could also bring more customers to the businesses in Riviera Village too. The people who attended understood how fortunate we were to have this event, even without the fireworks, with the Esplanade and the beach and the oceans just steps away. Big thanks to Ted, Mike Klein, and the Public Works staff for all they did, the police department for what they did, and the fire department, especially Chief Butler, for having the Tiger Squadron do a flyover. We really appreciated that. Mike Ward, Village Runner, and Mike Bell Event Productions managed the logistics. We paid them to manage the logistics of this event. And Athens Services for picking up all the extra trash after July 4th. And for Pike's Property, that was the sole sponsor of this. For those who don't know, I founded Keep the Esplanade Beautiful almost 10 years ago this September. Well, 10 years ago this September. Can't believe it's been that long. I'm no longer part of the board, but I volunteer when requested. And as I was just talking with Chief Butler, you know, when Jeff Ginsburg asks you to volunteer, you might as well do it because he's going to keep on you. So you do volunteer. But for some people, the mission of Keep the Esplanade Beautiful is really simple. It's to keep the Esplanade beautiful for all to enjoy and for future generations, plus to engage the community to do the same. You may have noticed that really on a consistent daily basis, people are out there picking up trash all the time. Now, we hold a first Saturday sweep to pick up trash. We meet at Saks on the Beach at Catalina and Avenue I at 9 o'clock. Please come join us anytime. Also, I'm excited to announce that KEB has 2 new board members. Brad Waller is going to be vice president and Miriam Butler, secretary. They will bring more youth to the first Saturday sweep. Brad has been involved with the PTA for decades, and Miriam works with the Scouts program. They join former City Council Representative Jeff Ginsburg, who is president, and Ann Darkey, who is a treasurer. And Lisa Happy is an at-large member who works on special projects. I'm also excited that we're holding our first annual community mixer since the pandemic on September 20th at HT Grill. This year, the theme is water. I have donated a air to water dispenser. It's really kind of cool. So it creates water for you as a raffle item. And if I can get a minute just to finish. And as in the past, members of the Friends of Redondo Beach Art will donate art to the silent auction. Alan Sanford Beach Life will donate tickets, and there'll be more silent auction items. So please save the date, September 20th. More details will follow. And once again, thank you to all who keep the Esplanade beautiful. It does take a village. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Nikki Negretti Mitchell, and after that, we've run out of cards, so if anybody wants to speak, please approach the podium.
Hi, everyone. Nikki Negretti Mitchell, District 3. And I didn't really prepare anything, but I just wanted to update everybody. Councilmember Obaji kind of knows where things are, and that's really nice. We've been establishing a presence with the COG and going to their meetings, and they really, before the changing of the guard, they really didn't have any exposure to any of these facts that we've been sharing with them. And the first time I spoke at the COG, I was pulled aside afterwards and thanked and said, they told me that my talk was very eye-opening. And so they've been really open and learning about all of our issues back there at the right-of-way. So we've been also dispelling misinfo, as you know, and rhetoric and talking points. And so they have a better idea now. And we're not really, nobody's challenging us anymore. You know, we're not, so we've kind of established our positioning. And we share nothing but facts. And so also we've had some interactions with the Metro Board of Directors, not all of them, but a couple of them, and then their staff, and they've all been very open. And without saying too much, very receptive. And so I feel really good about that. So we're going to be getting together. So there's, probably about 165 people now in the Right of Say group, including Redondo Beach and Lawndale. And we're going to be getting together, having a rally at Franklin Park. And you'll hear more about it. We're planning it right now. And we're going to talk about how we're all going to get together and go forward. We're going to make a big impact. And so really confident about that. I also wanted to thank, the concert was awesome. I had the best time. It was like 1987 all over again, and I got all my exercise, and it was great, good time. And I think that's about, I thank you, Niels Nierenheim, for your representation with the Metro people downtown. And I'm excited to hear about, I don't know if you got my message, but yeah, I'm excited to hear about what's happening next.
We'll follow up as a group together separately.
Awesome. All right, well, thank you.
Thank you, Nikki. Would anybody else like to speak in non-agenda items?
Evening, Mayor Pro Tem, City Council, Wayne Craig, resident of District 1. I'm going to try to do a different new quote in honor of Jerry Dunphy, our famous newscaster from years ago. From the South Bay Social Club to Riviera Village and Redondo Beach, a good evening. I did want to talk about something that happened over the weekend. A couple times I've talked to my council member, he's been following up on it. But as you mentioned on the Esplanade, there's a lot of people walking by, a lot of businesses that operate. Usually if someone has a business there, they're supposed to have a permit. And I can see any pictures, but there's this taco truck that for 3 weeks in a row is always in the same spot on Avenue E and the Esplanade. And, you might be saying, well, why are you up here, bashing a guy trying to make a living? Well, he's parked at a red zone, doesn't have a permit, as far as I know. And it's competing against businesses that actually operate in Riviera Village, who pay for dining decks, they pay for all their overhead costs and such, while this person keeps on parking there all the time. I walked up and talked to him and said, hey, dude, you really shouldn't be parking here. It's a red zone, and it's red because that's supposed to be accessible for emergency vehicles should someone need help at the beach, like rescue, that kind of thing. His answer was, oh, I didn't know. I go, then why were you here the last 3 weeks in a row in the same exact corner on Avenue E and Esplanade? Anyway, obviously, I think this is maybe the person that does the most, but anyway, I think it'd be good to maybe have additional patrols. And the interesting thing was, I looked at the picture, the times, exactly the same time, both times I went by. So if you want to go at 1:30 in the afternoon on Saturday or Sunday, you'll probably see this guy parked over there. Anyway, I just hope code enforcement could do something. Like I said, it impacts safety and also the businesses that are trying to recover from COVID in Riviera Village that are just a few blocks away. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else would like to speak in public? Okay, how about anybody on Zoom?
We don't have anyone on Zoom. There's one e-comment for non-agenda items.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, moving along, we have a public hearing tonight. I want to start with any ex parte communications. Councilmember Nierenheim.
I have not spoken to anyone other than staff on this.
Okay, Councilmember Kalajetovich.
I spoke with Councilmember Barrett, staff, and members of the public.
Okay, Councilmember Obaji.
Members of the public and staff.
Okay, Councilmember Barrett.
I've spoken with Councilmember Kaladerovich, staff, and members of the public.
Okay, and I have spoken to staff. So can I get a motion and a second to open the public hearing, please?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Kapovich, start us off.
I'm going to give us just a real brief introduction, just to say a few thank yous. This has been an item that's a long time coming. I know how eager this council is in particular to see us execute these changes along the two corridors, aviation and Artesia. The Artesia Area Corridor Area Plan has been something we've been discussing for quite some time. It was adopted with a lot of suggestions. Two things to note before I turn it over to Greg and Sean. One, a big thank you to both of them as well as Brandy for their hard work in getting through the slog of the environmental analysis that's taken as long as it has to get us here. But two, that this is the first step in a multi-step process. These items tonight that you're dealing with are the first phase of implementation. You'll have another follow-up item in August that will deal with potential changes to parking regulations on the boulevards, which I think will actually be an even more substantive change and discussion. But do want to say thank you to both of these gentlemen. And Greg, with that, please take it away.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and council members. Greg Kapovich, Waterfront Development Director. With me, I have Sean Scully, our Planning Manager with the Community Development Department. And Mike alluded to it, we're pretty excited to be here tonight. This is really our first phase of the implementation measures for ACAP. It is the Artesian Aviation Corridors Plan, and it does identify steps that we as a city could make to encourage economic vitality and really give the area a shot at B12, if you will. Before I get into the details, this is our agenda tonight. Oh, can you run?
Yeah.
Thank you. I'll provide an overview of what we're doing. It's a general plan and a zoning code amendment. We're hoping that these bring a lot of changes to the area. I'm going to go over some of the purpose, the background, what we hope to achieve with these changes. Then I'm going to turn it over to Sean, who's going to go over the Planning Commission recommendations. They did look at this on June 1st and do support it. And then he'll go over to the CEQA analysis. We'll then open it up to public testimony and have you guys deliberate. And our intent as staff is that you adopt the mitigated neg deck, the CEQA analysis, and the two proposed resolutions. So here's the map of the plan area. It consists of both Artesia and Aviation Boulevards, connects PCH to really North Redondo Beach. It serves as a major connection piece that vehicles use to get from the 405 and 110 freeways, Torrance, Gardena, down to the beach, and onward, to be honest with you, to the surrounding cities like Hermosa. The current situation is that it's low-intensity commercial businesses. There's a good amount of vacancy out there, upwards of about 15%. The boulevards themselves, they're fast-moving. People usually cut through this area on their daily morning and afternoon commutes. It's a car-centric mentality. Roadways are loud. And the advertisement for the businesses are really oriented to cater towards that fast-moving vehicle traffic. However, there is about 15,000 people that live within a quarter mile of the area, 22,000 that live within a half a mile. So this surrounding community could support the corridor. But pedestrian connections from the surrounding neighborhoods are limited at best. The physical environment lacks gathering spaces, lacks outdoor dining. And it doesn't really have pedestrian-oriented signage, all of which could attract nearby residents. So the good news is that City Council did recognize these deficiencies and approved the ACAP to fix this and create a corridor that supports the surrounding local community. We really want it to strike a balance with the existing working community out there. We want it to still serve as a lunch spot for those people working in the existing office spaces. They can run their errands during the weekdays. But really, we want it to transition to nighttime and weekend use to those surrounding community members, outdoor dining, restaurants, run to the corner grocery store, if you will. The key is that these businesses, to really achieve optimal success, is a 7-day-a-week success story. It's a true balance. Now, the ACAP provided a pretty long list of recommendations, and some of which we're going to get into tonight, but definitely not all of them. Again, this is our first step into reaching some of that transformation. So the actual proposed changes for tonight. First and foremost, we're proposing amendments to both the general plan and the zoning code to ensure that they actually reference the ACAP, and the ACAP references them. We don't want any inconsistencies between those three documents. Next, we propose to allow restaurant uses and office uses more readily along the corridors. To be clear, all the proposed changes tonight are really just for properties that have frontage on either Artesia or Aviation Boulevards. I just want to make that clear. The ACAP did identify both restaurants and office uses as preferred. Right now, office uses are allowed, but only on the upper floor. So our intent is to actually allow them on the ground floor too, just by right. No extra permits necessary. This really is meant to just open up options for potential owners that they may want to locate here and really help reduce vacancy rates. So, yes, office needs have probably shifted due to COVID. I think we can all agree that the work from home philosophy has become more common. Businesses are reducing where they can. That said, there's still a need, especially in an area that provides smaller office spaces. If you saw the ACAP, it identifies the area as narrow, shallow lots. So this isn't an area that has big box office spaces. In fact, it's probably because of its sizing, probably attractive to an office that is already downsizing or for a new office business that wants to open up. Now, restaurants themselves are already allowed on the ground floor. However, the nuance there is that any restaurant over 2,000 square feet requires a conditional use permit from our planning commission. In addition, outdoor dining also triggers that same conditional use permit. Now, CUPs absolutely have a role and they can be good. The Planning Commission has historically done a pretty good job of contributing to these projects and making them better after they obtain the CUP. However, from the business community, this is really seen as a big uncertainty. Will it be denied? Will it be modified to a point that they no longer want to pursue their restaurant use? Certainty for a business owner and for a developer is paramount. A CUP can take 3 to 5 months. With additional non-refundable costs associated with that, regardless of the outcome. So when you add that uncertainty, it encourages businesses to look elsewhere where restaurants may not have these CUP limitations. And again, the ACAP has declared these uses as preferred. So let's remove that CUP requirement for restaurants over 2,000 square feet and instead reduce it to a staff level administrative use permit. It still allows staff to add site-specific conditions that may be unique to that business, but it's a lot quicker of a process and a lot cheaper of a process. Same goes for outdoor dining. It can be a huge benefit to restaurants. It represents additional table area that normally wouldn't fit inside the building. It's actually common that landowners usually at least do a reduced rate for outdoor areas. So, for higher tables, that's higher table turnover. It may be the straw that has someone choose this area over surrounding cities. And here we do suggest an AUP process as well. That way we can review it, make sure that there's no ADA access problems. They're not trying to squeeze too much into an area. And again, we think we can be nimble with that at the front counter. In addition to outdoor dining, there's other ways in which the ACAP encourages a more pedestrian-centric approach, and that's through A-frame signs and outdoor retail sales. Again, trying to create sense of place here. Each would require a permit from our staff just to ensure, again, that the placement and the scale is appropriate. Pedestrians can still get by. There's not too much of a bottleneck, that kind of thing. Now, the next couple items are changes to our standards that really would affect future redevelopment. It's designed in a manner that encourages further progress to create more space for these outdoor dining areas, for these A-frame signs. And the first is an increase to allowable FAR from 0.5 to 0.6. Floor area ratio, that's what it stands for, is really a massing of the building. So it really dictates the amount of square footage that you have on the upper level floors. A slight increase would allow redevelopers to get more floor area. And this is especially important when you have lots that are so shallow and narrow. It could make or break a project in terms of penciling out financially. And then a couple other changes to our development standards is with regards to open space and access points to our surrounding neighborhoods. First, I'll deal with the open space. Now, we're creating mechanisms to allow for all these outdoor spaces. But granted, there are certain areas that just simply don't have the room right now to locate outdoor dining or locate an A-frame sign. So what we're doing is establishing a development standard that when a new redevelopment project occurs, like a large-scale new building or a substantial addition, that open space be provided on the ground level so that we can further this effort. And with regards to pedestrian access, this is almost the same thing. When there's a large redevelopment project, we want to look into pedestrian and bicycle access points that directly connect the neighborhoods that are next door so that people have a little bit of a shortcut to get to the dry cleaners, if you will. So in summary, these are implementation measures that have been already supported and approved through adoption of the ACAP. They're really policies, and now we're starting to get more detailed here. They won't achieve a perfect balance overnight, but this does represent our first steps. How do we try to attract more restaurants and office uses to choose this area over others? I think a quicker process, more certainty, and a little more cost-effective will do that. I think the allowance of additional tables and chairs outside will also do that. Once vacancies are reduced, how do we encourage private investment? I think the slight increase to FAR will actually help do that. And then once redevelopment is occurring, how do we build upon our success? How do we build upon more outdoor space? And I think the standards requiring outdoor space and access points will do that. I'm actually going to turn it over to Sean, who's going to go over the Planning Commission recommendations now, as well as CEQA.
Thank you, Greg. Mayor Pro Tem, members of the City Council, Sean Scully, Planning Manager. Been working a long time on this project. We're very happy to be here. I had to reiterate that. And the Planning Commission was very well received at the Planning Commission as well. They took a very hard look at all the proposed recommendations and changes to the zoning ordinance and supported the majority of the proposed ordinance amendments as they're laid out in the ordinance before you tonight. They did, however, have a few recommendations. They're also articulated in the ordinance, in the findings as well. And I was just going to run through those. The first one being the conditional use requirement for outdoor dining areas, changing that to an AUP. They did support that. However, they did want to have a certain size at some, they didn't specify the size, but have a limit of a size, square footage area that would still trigger the CUP. They were not specific, but imagine 300, 500 square feet, something along those lines. There was some internal debate, so they settled on just having a recommendation to the council to consider having some ceiling that would trigger a conditional use permit. The next is placing language in the permit for outdoor dining areas to appear before the Planning Commission if deemed a nuisance by code enforcement. That was another recommendation that they had with the issuance of an administrative use permit. The next item would be that they had was reduce the CUP requirements for restaurants as well from the, let me rephrase it. So we've removed the requirement for a CUP and it's now an AUP for restaurants over 2,000 square feet. The Planning Commission looked to establish a size limit of 5,000 square feet as that threshold. So a restaurant over 5,000 square feet, they would still, they're recommending that there still be a CUP requirement. The last item is a little different. They wanted to, this is the one for access, adjacent bicycle and pedestrian access between the commercial development and the adjacent residential. The way the ordinance is drafted now, it's just for multifamily residential adjacent to the commercial. And the Planning Commission was in favor of this completely and said, hey, any residential property that the future development may be adjacent to, let's look at getting that pedestrian access. Next slide. So those were the Planning Commission's recommendations, a little bit nuanced. Essentially, they were looking to establish still have some limits on restaurant and outdoor dining where a CUP would be required. And then the CEQA determination. So as part of this project, we did a fairly in-depth CEQA analysis. An initial study was conducted, and it was determined that there could be potentially significant impacts to cultural resources along the corridor. And as a result, we had to, the environmental document before you is for a mitigated negative declaration. And essentially, the reason that became, a potentially significant impact is because we have some older structures along Artesia and Aviation, and they are technically old enough to qualify as a historic resource. So we want to ensure that there's some mitigation in place to address any potential impacts to the historical and unanticipated discoveries that may occur with future development. So that's the mitigation measures that are incorporated into the environmental document. So therefore, a mitigated negative declaration has been prepared that we're asking the city council to adopt prior to the ordinance and general plan amendments. So do you want to do the recommendation, Greg?
Yeah, that pretty much sums up our presentation. We're here to have any questions that you may have for us, here to answer them. But that is our recommendation to you tonight, is to adopt the mitigated neg deck and the 2 resolutions for the general plan amendment and the zoning changes.
Thank you very much. Good work, gentlemen. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Just a quick question from me. Why 0.6 versus higher?
Oh, there's a bit of the history of that was we went to the General Plan Advisory Committee where we started this effort. And the initial take was a much grander increase in FAR, a lot more intense development we thought would be necessary to really revitalize the corridor, turn over those properties. But we did a market feasibility study, and there was some evidence in that technical study that a more incremental change, a smaller change, could still incentivize some development. And the General Plan Advisory Committee really felt with the future development of the Galleria and the impact that may have in sparking further development on the corridor, they kind of wanted to see how that would spill over and didn't want to do anything radical. So they wanted it to be a little bit more organic in terms of change and not incentivize a drastic change. So it was scaled back to the 0.6.
Yeah, I seem to recall 0.75 for some reason. Did we talk about that?
And I think there was also concern on our part that anything much greater than the 0.5 to 0.6 change was going to trigger perhaps an Article 27 requirement, which would have significantly delayed both the environmental analysis as well as the ultimate implementation, because it would also have required a vote.
Yeah.
So this was, I think, that sweet spot where we were threading the needle to make some immediate change that we could do on a more of an administrative basis, and then recognize that the more grandeur change that the council's discussed be incorporated as part of the general plan review, and that substantively would be evaluated through that vote.
0.5 to 0.6 is still 20%, correct?
It is. It's still something. It's still substantive. It's just not enough to trigger other potential impacts.
Okay, great. I'll open the floor to any questions from council. Councilmember Obaji.
Sure. Thanks, Mayor Pro Tem. On the slide about the environmental, I guess the mitigation required, mitigation measures, there are 3 of them listed. Are those things that will be, if we adopt this, I guess EIR or this mitigated negative declaration, are those mitigation measures that the city will be taking? Or are those options that we have to choose from?
Those are all the mitigation measures that are implemented with this adoption of the ordinance.
Okay.
So we'll be on notice in future development to pay special attention to the structure that's being, let's say, altered or demolished, and then instigate these mitigation measures.
Right. And I saw that the open space requirement was for properties that were about 15,000 square feet or larger. How many of those properties do we actually have in the ACAP area? Are there any, actually? Let me just ask that.
We didn't look exactly at that, but there are very few. There's only
very few.
a couple.
And it's not just lots, it's actual projects. It's 15,000 square feet of commercial space. So it's
The FAR of points.
Okay, so
It's
that
the
means
project
you'd have to
size.
have at a 0.6, you'd have to have like close to a 30,000 square foot lot in order to have 15,000 square foot.
Right,
You'd
it's-
actually have, yeah.
project.
It's a development standard that's likely going to be
Never reached.
for now, but when we pursue the 1.5 and when we pursue parcel aggregation techniques,
Right.
it'll come into play.
Yeah, aggregation, I think, is going to be the bigger
And so
time.
that's the other question I have for you is what is the environmental, and sorry, I know that Director Forbes sent it out really a couple months ago, but what is the environmental impact report or whatever we got, mitigated negative declaration? What does that tell us about how much we can increase the FAR? Can we go to 1.5 without having significant environmental impacts?
I think that study is currently underway.
Yes, right. We
Yeah,
don't know
so that's
yet.
being studied as part of the general plan
it is,
update.
okay.
So that PlaceWorks is managing that through that full environmental review.
This one just covers to 0.6.
All right, and last thing, the same kind of question about the square footage as to the planning commission's recommendations, where they just wanted to go up to, they wanted a CUP requirement for restaurants over 5,000 square feet in size. How many restaurants of 5,000 square feet in size do we currently have in the ACAP area?
Allegedly, maybe just the Denny's, is that?
Yeah, there's very few. If, for example, the Grub House, that would have tripped this.
Okay,
So, and we don't have, maybe the Denny's, most of the other restaurants would be under this that currently exist.
and as far as the Grub House goes, actually, that's coming in our Artesia and McKay, will they be able to adjust their project now to take advantage of the 0.6 FAR? Because I remember when they presented to the planning commission, they had said that they developed it in a way that they could add enclosed space if the FAR were ever increased. Now the FAR is going to be increased. Are their plans already in and they're proceeding on their plans and they'd have to come in with I guess a building permit
Yeah,
request?
they would have to come in. The thing is with that particular project is anything additional they would do square footage wise would end up triggering an EIR review because, or at least the VMT, the vehicle miles traveled review for the traffic impacts. They were able to screen out because of the size that they are. So if they added any additional square footage, it would end up triggering that review.
Okay, got it, thank you.
And I think there's the second part of your analysis that's going to come in August with parking regulations would potentially also be a factor in that change. So
Right.
that's another area that we're going to want to pay some close attention to.
All right, that's it for me. Thank you for finally bringing this forward and look forward to hopefully passing this and moving on to the next things for Artesia Boulevard.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Nierenheim.
Oh, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. So it'd be nice to have, one of the things when we passed the largest construction project in the history of the South Bay, which is the South Bay Galleria, now South Bay Social. We got the $1 million for the Artesia Boulevard. And one thing I've said consistently all the way through is I want to create like the avenue of Champs-Élysées in France, right? Very walkable, very open, very broad. That's great. Brings people in from Manhattan, Hermosa down. Office space, second floor, they have, I look at the Riviera Village, right? So when we have office space on the first floor, it doesn't create the walkability. They look at the office space on second floor, you have 2-floor buildings, and then office space only on second floor versus retail restaurant on the first floor. You look at that and that.
Oh, certainly. I mean, the impetus was we are having a lot of interest in ground floor office. I can think of many examples where businesses have come in or accountants, other law offices trying to move in and they haven't been able to. So and they haven't come in with other proposals. So there's been a fairly high vacancies on our ground floor, which is, in staff's opinion, a lesser alternative.
Right.
And the way the corridor is spread out, we're really looking at kind of compartmentalizing the corridor, not necessarily pedestrian all the way, but nodes that we can grow. That's part of the philosophy of and the strategy that's that kind of underlies the ACAP development process or effort. So you will get, office here and then restaurants clustering in this area. So, and then you can create, more energy and synergy between the land uses. So, we're hoping to, again, smaller scale. And it's been staff's opinion that having ground floor office would get more activity on the corridor.
So it's a little bit of a different problem than what is experienced in Riviera Village, where in some cases, office on the ground floor might be deflecting other more desirable uses. Right now, what we're dealing with is trying to address the vacancy factor, and office will help us alleviate that burden. There may come a time when we might want to modulate the different types of activities along the boulevard, but for now, we're looking to try to just stimulate any sort of activity, and office is a strong one, and I believe some of that office might even be service-oriented, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, absolutely.
Medical offices come to mind. There's a demand for services that would help and assist the residents in the area on a walkability basis that they don't see viability in placing themselves on the second floor. And we have buildings that only have a ground floor that are currently vacant there. That is part of our dilemma along Artesia.
So we don't have a lot of very many two-story buildings there.
We have some, but not a ton. We have a lot of ground floor only scenarios.
So to the point of increasing the FAR, that would incentivize people to possibly getting lots together and then going up.
And maybe going up, yeah.
And then in that case, we would have more of an ability to start.
That, I believe, accompanied with some more flexible parking standards, I think we can achieve that goal. That's the other big burden that the businesses experience up there when they come to the counter and look to, convert properties, as they realize, oh, goodness, under our old retail standard, whatever we try to build, we just can't park on property. And it follows that old 50s and 60s sort of Main Street retail focus where everybody's driving to the business, buying their good and going home. That is not what the boulevard should be into the future. There's just too many residents that could benefit from its proximity, and we just don't need that level of on-site parking that you might need in other communities or different environments.
Okay, so looking at these Plan Commission recommendations, did we implement any of the recommendations here into the
into the ordinance proposed? No. Okay. These are just in the findings. The ordinance stipulates the recommendations, not the Planning Commission recommendations. Those are so we can articulate.
Yeah, so the answer would be if any of these are of interest to the council, you would just simply direct that as part of your final motion, and we would incorporate them into the final ordinance.
Okay, because I'm interested in this CUP versus AUP. One of the concerns I have is the impacts to the surrounding neighbors, right? Noise, outdoor noise, and the ability to enforce the requirements. And what is the difference for CUP versus AUP when it comes to enforcement and ability to?
No real difference materially in terms of enforceability. Whatever conditions are issued as part of the AUP process would be the same as they would be a CUP process. The real distinction here is that they're discussed and deliberated upon by staff and then executed in the administrative permit, as opposed to having to package up materials, take to the Planning Commission, have the discussion, and having them issued by the Planning Commission themselves. So I don't think we make this recommendation lightly. The reality is we believe very strongly in the CUP process. We think there's good reason for it in most places. We can, though, say in this instance, and with the intention of trying to activate and provide more certainty for the business community to stimulate revitalization, it makes sense for us to go to an AUP process here. We're sensitive to the impacts these businesses would have on neighbors. 99% of the time, we're in absolute lockstep agreement with what the Planning Commission is going to recommend as part of a CUP. Typically, it's suggestions that are made as part of staff's initial recommendation that are finally adopted. So I wouldn't say necessarily that there's going to be a different litmus to how we evaluate the project. It would just happen more quickly. And certainly we can make adjustments if we find that the AUP is short, there are shortcomings or deficiencies that the Planning Commission would better catch than some of our counter personnel after we've executed these projects. We could always revisit them and come back and either make a change to the standard or simply implement additional conditions based on the ground performance.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, I love the AUP process. Shorten it up, quick, faster, simpler, less time overall.
Yeah,
Ms. Forbes?
I was just going to share that in the AUP procedures, there is a revocation. So if it does become a nuisance or they're not following the conditions, it can be revoked.
Okay, so then going to recommendation number 1, a reduce CUP requirement for outdoor dining areas to an AUP, but require a CUP of outdoor dining above a certain size. Can we implement that somehow?
You'd have to pick a square footage. You'd have to say, okay, well, right now it's 150 feet. You could, per the Planning Commission's conversation, you could say, all right, anything over 1,000 feet or anything over 500 feet is going to require CUP as opposed to an AUP. The reality is our outdoor dining opportunities are really limited until we assess the parking regulations and can determine where these sort of parklets or outdoor spaces can actually be implemented, because right now the barrier is parking. Because as you all know, as you add outdoor dining space, you're adding more tables and you're adding additional parking requirements that are provided under the code. So it's sort of it's a double whammy in that respect.
Catch-22.
It's fairly limited as is. I mean, I don't see massive outdoor dining spaces until we get to lease or lot aggregation down the road.
I mean,
I'm sorry.
Yeah, go for it.
Counselor, yeah, just to add on the AUP, that is noticed as well. So adjacent property owners are noticed. It is also appealable to the Planning Commission.
Yeah.
So wanted to.
I mean, I like this AUP for outdoor dining. It's been such a huge success for the village that I really want to see if we can try to get, even if it's just a little bit, and 1 or 2 places take effect of it. It's one more cog that's moving forward, it's grappling.
And in effect, what you've experienced in the village is an AUP process. There has not been a CUP for these activities thus far.
So what number would there be? 500? I mean, 2 parking spots would be approximately, let's see, a car is 10 feet, 10 times 10
200
times.
feet maybe. Yeah.
What?
Maybe at 2 spaces is maybe 200 feet, not quite, in practical space. I mean,
it would be 20 by 20,
160,
400.
Yeah, I mean, you got 10 feet by 8 feet, depending, 10 feet by 9 feet.
10 by,
depends on how big the parking spaces are.
It's 20 by
parallel.
16.
Yeah, the reality is unless they find a way to buy an adjacent property and they actually create outdoor dining behind sidewalk, there's not a lot of places to go here for that use, especially given our current parking conditions. So it's almost limited by lot depth really now. But yeah, if there's a concern, you could certainly add a number here to this and have it be a CUP.
20 by 16 would be 320 square feet. I wouldn't mind throwing that in here if that wouldn't cause any issues and delay any of this. If somebody can do it, I mean, again, it's how big move Artesia Boulevard long?
Maybe make it an even 400 feet or something. I mean,
Yeah.
just a round number that people can, remember.
Okay. Yeah, I'll put it in motion. Reduce CUP requirements for restaurants over 2,000 square feet to an AUP, but require CUP to provide. I think I just leave that alone. Because what you just said here at the end, Councilmember Baji's good point on that one. And then allow pedestrian commercial access between adjacent commercial of all types of residential properties. Is there a way we can get more bicycle parking in some of these areas? I guess that wouldn't really matter for the EIR now, would it? MND.
Expanding this beyond multifamily, I guess I don't, Sean,
Yeah,
you could
it's a little bit.
articulate how this affects.
What this is all about is we're trying to find some mid-block access to the corridor. Instead of walking all the way around the block, we're actually driving. So what we're looking for here, what we're doing, right now our current zoning ordinance says if you have a commercial property adjacent to residential, you have to build a wall. And so we're basically, the amendment to the zoning ordinance is to allow for pedestrian or bicycle access through the, property boundaries. And it's, truthfully, I just was taking a look at the zoning map, and I think all we have adjacent to all the commercially zoned properties is multifamily.
Right.
So they were just trying to be, the Planning Commission was actually very favorable of
Trying to be
this,
more expansive,
trying to be more
yeah.
expansive and say, well, any residential property, but, at the time we didn't
We
have the
have the
zoning
map,
map.
right? Did you want to put that map back
Yeah.
up there, Greg? I mean, you can see here, right?
I mean,
This
is an existing land use, so
There's a couple
it's not actually
examples.
zoning, but
Both contiguous streets are,
there
with one exception, I think, and I want to say along Aviation, there's some R2 or R1, like on Rockefeller and in areas like that.
Yeah, yes,
Golden Hills.
yes. Some industrial area. I think that's like Water District or something. Not Water District, but
Yeah.
one of the.
Can you go back to that slide real quick? I wanted that. Where is it?
There you go.
Okay, perfect. That's it. All right, that's all I've got. Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Keller-Jarovich, please.
I just had one clarification on that access. I believe you had said that regardless of if it were just multifamily or, all residential, there would still have to be appropriate buy-in from the community in that area.
Right.
Oh, absolutely.
It would just open up the possibility that it could be done.
Yeah, I think the exact
Makes
language
sense.
in the ordinance requires agreement by all parties.
And everyone else asked all my questions, so thank you, council members.
I just want to make sure, Councilmember Barron, do you have any questions before I go to Councilmember Obaji?
I do, and I have put my hand down at this time.
Okay.
Yeah, well, this is huge. The Artesia Aviation Corridor is one of the biggest issues, not just in District 5 and 4 and 3, but really throughout the entire city. I'm appreciative, I know everyone else is appreciative of the hard work that's gone into this, certainly Director Kapovich, Planning Manager Scully, and as always, Director Forbes. So this is great, and I'm excited about it. I did have a couple questions and perhaps a few concerns I'd like to raise, if I may. And I'll just put this out there to our group, our staff. The open space requirement, I think Director Kapovich spoke eloquently to the point earlier that we want to incentivize, we want to bring people in. We don't want any particular item to be sort of the straw that breaks the camel's back and pushes somebody out, a developer, an entrepreneur, a potential business partner somewhere else. And the concern I have about the outdoor space requirement is, can that be the straw that breaks the back? And specifically, Mayor Pro Tem brought up the fact that we're going incremental on the FAR increase, right? 0.5 to 0.6. If we're going to include a 10% clawback for outdoor space, that's going to potentially reduce the FAR. I'm concerned about that. The outdoor space as defined requires it, not to have any type of fence or anything around it. An entrepreneur, that may not be their vision. They may want sort of an outdoor look, but they'd like for there to be a little, access point, entry point that can be controlled. I think Councilmember Obaji made the good point with staff that we don't have really 15,000 square foot projects in the works or sites that necessarily have that space. But in the future, we want to encourage, lot connection, and we want entrepreneurs to come in and think big, think bold. And I'm just concerned that this outdoor space requirement, may be a little too early in the process. If we are so blessed that we have entrepreneurs coming in, think Grub House and others, and we don't like the look. And we think, we want some changes. I feel like we could revisit that item at a later time and maybe implement, our view of what should be there with outdoor space. But at this time, I'd like to learn more about it. I'd like to at least table it for now and not include it, at least tonight, in the ordinance that we're considering. My understanding is we could, come back to it as early as when we talk about the parking issue in the next round. That's kind of a big thing for me. And also, the outdoor space, could that space be used for, on-site parking or not? Other uses. I don't want to belabor the point. But that was one thing that kind of jumped out to me. I did have just a couple other things. I know Councilmember Obaji wants to speak, and I've been going for a little while, but I could be quick if that's okay, Mayor Pro Tem.
Sure, go ahead.
All right. On the the bicycle and pedestrian access, I'm assuming that's completely voluntary. In other words, hey, if an entrepreneur or business person together with the community want to do that, they can do it. But if somebody says, we don't want to do that, I'm assuming that won't have any impact on the approval of their project. Again, I don't want to burden and scare off anybody who may be considering, doing business with us.
That is correct, Councilman. This is not an obligation. This is an allowance, assuming the parties are interested.
Okay, I like that. I think that's a great synergy potentially with the community. In the ordinance itself, there's language that says, and I'll scroll to it, the proposed revision to, on page 350 of the agenda packet, to Redondo Beach Municipal Code 10-2.2500, the administrative design review now says the project shall be consistent with the intent of the ACAP. Does that add a little too much subjectivity into the approval process? Director Kapovich talked about consistency and predictability. Is that language, the project shall be consistent with the intent of the ACAP, too subjective? And in other words, look, the project's either complies with the municipal code or it doesn't. And so I was concerned about having that language in there. I don't know if anyone can speak to that right now.
Sure thing. So the municipal code are a set of established regulations that are very black and white. The regulations are adopted to meet the intent of a general plan or a guiding document like the ACAP. So, you establish the criteria to establish development standards in an effort to reach your desired vision for the ACAP. So in a way, by adhering to all the development standards, you are meeting the intent. So it's more of a, when you're looking at the ACAP and looking at the vision of it, does your project meet the intent of what we're going after? Are you creating a more pedestrian-friendly environment? Are you creating a less car-centric environment? The development standards are going to speak for themselves, but that overarching kind of question is really for the entire project in its own right. Sean, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, it is a bit subjective. There's design guidelines in the ACAP that we would apply. There's a development standards, they're hard line. And then you have things like guidelines. We're required by law to change our residential design guidelines. We can't have them subjective any longer. They have to be objective. But the commercial environment doesn't have that, regulation. So there's a little bit more nuance to that.
And I would argue in this case, there is some value and flexibility, right? The ACAP is a guiding plan. The intent of the ACAP, right, could be viewed differently by reasonable-minded people, but I think sort of the overarching principles are fairly clear, and it allows for evolution, right? It allows for us to consider a project and make changes down the road for projects that may not have met the goals of the ACAP once implemented as we expected them to. So sometimes subjectivity is good. I understand that in a specific legal sense that can give pause, but I think in this instance it allows for us to evaluate things on the whole and make that determination.
All right. And so in the judgment, thank you for that. In the judgment of staff, does this subjective standard create the uncertainty? And I see Director Forbes has come forward.
Yeah, actually, and this is almost like the reverse of what we're going to talk about next week with the objective residential standards. In this particular circumstance, you're taking what those policy measures are for that are in the ACAP and actually changing the zoning to address that versus what you'll see in the objective residential standards is having more definition that clarifies what's already in in the zoning. So this is actually guiding what those changes are that you're talking about tonight for the changes in the zoning to actually do that implementation.
And I would argue down the road is after this is implemented, if it's approved tonight and we start to experience different project applications, and if we begin to struggle with defining the intent, we can always come back with additional specific definitions that can be considered by the council. That's the one thing I always try to mention as we go through these exercises is you're taking a first step here. This isn't permanent, the decisions you make tonight. I know it takes a long time to get here, but once we make them, we can make revisions if we identify consistent problem areas as we define what the ACAP's intent is.
Okay.
Okay. Just two other things very quick, and I will be quick, if I may, Mayor Pro Tem. If not, I could come back to him. I mean,
Why don't we go to Councilmember Obaji? I want to make sure everybody
All right.
gets a quick say.
Let's do that.
I've already gone, so just let him
You're
finish.
fine. Okay, continue then.
Okay. All right. And then on page 350 of the agenda packet is RBMC 10-25.2502, Planning Commission Design Review. Quick question on the conditions of approval. Okay, it says the condition stated for this project must protect the public health, safety, and general welfare. So I guess my question is, does the Planning Commission then have the discretion to determine whether or not a particular project is necessary to protect the public health, safety, and general welfare? Or
Yes.
is it saying that, okay. Is that
No?
a new power?
For planning commission design review? No?
I think what you're asking is the planning commission then finding that this is necessary to protect the health, safety, and welfare? It's not that what they're reviewing is to make sure that the project does, that it is not going to be harming the public health, safety, and welfare.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. That was my question. And then one of the items the planning commission can consider, there are a number of items the planning commission could consider under that, including whether landscaping is provided. Is that a little bit outside health, safety, and general welfare? I mean, does this give the planning commission, the option to come back and say, hey, business, we don't think your landscaping is good and therefore it violates health, safety, and general welfare, and we're going to deny the project? Because these are all additions. This is underlining potential proposed new language.
I can put it on the screen.
I mean,
Page 351, add section 9, subsection B criteria.
he's looking, yeah. He's looking at the criteria for a planning commission design review, which, which isn't in, we're not amending the criteria for planning commission design review, except for this interjection. So you're speaking to existing criteria, council member?
Well, it looks like what's proposed here and underlined is new conditions of approval. And, are these conditions look like they're new? And it says the conditions stated in the resolution or design considerations for the project shall be deemed necessary to protect the public health and safety and general welfare. Such conditions may include, but not limited to, G, provision of landscaping. My question is this granting a little too much to the planning commission to say, hey, this project will have a negative impact on health, safety, or general welfare? For example, if it doesn't have a certain type of landscaping, and if so, is that appropriate?
Traditional.
Yeah,
There are a couple of things with planning commission design review. If it's requiring a planning commission design review, they have to meet those criteria. If it's adding landscaping, just bear in mind, we do have our landscaping regulations that they're going to have to comply with. So I think it's really going to tie back into that. It's MWELO, the Model Water Efficiency Landscaping Ordinance, because we couldn't make it a little easier to say. But it's, it'll tie back into that if they're looking at landscaping. And also, when Planning Commission does that Planning Commission design review, they are looking at impacts, and I don't mean CEQA impacts, but impacts if there's like residential neighboring it, to see, what are they doing for landscaping? I know that Councilmember Barrett, that you were on the planning commission when we were doing the Grub House project and doing that review. And there was a lot of landscaping that was incorporated into that as part of that planning commission design review component of that project.
And I'd say candidly, I really think it's important that we include landscaping in the criterion. I don't think we really want to encourage or even provide the opportunity for a project that doesn't consider the provision of landscaping in it. I just think from a general planning standpoint, yes, there may be certain developers that would perhaps consider proposing something without it, but I think it makes sense for us to have a standard like this and a criterion like this, and I do think it would give the commission and staff potentially the ability to say, yes, you need to provide a landscape plan, you need to consider that as part of your project. It may give them some flexibility to say that's insufficient, but I'd certainly rather, I would recommend we have that opportunity rather than not mention it at all and provide for a developer to say by right, I have no obligation to provide landscaping in this condition.
Yep, and I'm with you on that. You've actually really clarified or given me a good answer to the question. Health, safety, and general welfare can include landscaping. So including, for example, landscaping in here is fine. That's kind of my question. And it sounds like it is. I just pointed out landscaping as an example.
Yeah,
So.
right.
Okay. All right. And yeah, the last thing very quick. I really like the changes from CUP to AUP. That's huge. To streamline the process, to provide the certainty, to encourage people like Grub House, which were amazing to come in. And so, I want to, let's not just reimagine the ACAP, let's do it. And I think this goes a long way. Thank you, everybody, for your indulgence. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Councilmember Barrett. Since this is a public hearing, I want to open this up to the public for any questions they may have. So does the public have questions? Or does Zoom, is there anybody on Zoom?
We do not have anyone on Zoom and no e-comments for this item.
Okay. Nobody in the audience here? Okay, we'll go back to Councilmember Obaji.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. On the subject of the outdoor dining areas moving to the AUP, if we realize, okay, now it's going gangbusters on Artesia Boulevard, it's only a dream, but it's going gangbusters and lots of dining areas, and it's causing lots of noise, could we then move to a CUP situation where people are going to have to apply for their new outdoor dining areas?
Yes, we could come back with that change.
Would the administrative professional administering the AUP still have authority to impose new conditions to the extent that, let's say, one restaurant starts to become super loud and obnoxious, new conditions could be issued towards them?
Yes, we can react to the environment the same way the planning commission can react, yes.
And the last condition, Councilmember Barron, what condition is it what was it that you were not liking about the staff's proposals? Just so I'm clear, because I got lost at your initial.
The open space.
Yeah, it's the 10% open space requirement.
For FAR on lots over 15,000 square feet that don't exist?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. All right.
If the time comes, I was going to say if and when they do exist, if it becomes an issue, we could, I feel, address it then.
Okay. All right. So I'll make a motion.
Hang on one second.
Real quick, just want to get into clarifying, if you don't mind.
Go ahead. Well, hang on one second. You want to clarify something?
Yeah, we'll get some clarification on the bullet points. So for the.
No, wait a second. Or he still has the floor. So let me.
Yeah.
Are you asking him a clarification, or are you asking clarification?
Am I being interrupted right now?
Yeah.
By the chief complainer of interruptions?
Hold on one second, guys. Are you asking him a clarification?
I was going to. It's fine. I didn't know he was done yet. So go for it.
Okay, continue.
Make a motion to introduce by title only ordinance number.
Can't do that.
We have to close the public hearing.
Oh, that's right. We got to close the public hearing.
Yeah, that's why I'm asking.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Hang on one second. Because we still have two other people. Councilmember Keller-Jadovich.
Yeah, just
2 quick questions. In regard to the open space requirement for the lots that don't exist yet, could that open space be considered rooftop dining?
Not currently. The requirement for usable public open space, it has to be publicly accessible.
Okay,
I mean, there's potentially a way to do it, but I don't know what that would be.
could be addressed later. Great. And then is there a benefit to approving this tonight as opposed to waiting to look at the parking that is coming in August?
There isn't any meaningful impact by delay until the parking consideration. As has been noted, we don't have any pending 15,000 square foot projects along the boulevard. But what I will say that this is a policy statement that is consistent with the ACAP. The vision for the ACAP is that we try to create more public open space opportunities along the boulevard. One of the chief problems we have along the boulevard is there's not any place to congregate outdoors that's comfortable for the public. And if there were to be a significant project of this size and scope, it would, I think, behoove the applicant to actually incorporate this type of an outdoor space as part of their project. I think a good developer would probably do it without this obligation, but we are sending a message with this sort of policy statement about the future. It doesn't have to be tonight. It could certainly be next month. It could certainly be after the general plan consideration, next year, as we consider perhaps increased FAR. So it's one of the items that was identified in the ACAP as perhaps being a good planning guide and policy statement. No obligation tonight to implement it at this time.
Those are my questions.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Nairnheim.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. So going a little confused here, bullet point number 3. So the planning commission said increase to 5,000, right? But can you just explain to me real quick? So they wanted to change from 5,000 to 2,000 to 5,000. Below 2,000 irregardless right now, is there an AUP in process?
Permissible by right.
Everything is just CUP right now.
No, it's permissible by right.
Permissible by right, meaning they
No
can come in for
conditions.
a building permit, plan check, and that's it.
Once you hit 2,001 or 2,000 square feet, CUP.
Well, but if you build a 500 square foot restaurant,
You're okay.
you're okay.
Well, and not only that, you don't even have an AUP currently.
Right,
Yeah.
you don't have, that's my point,
Right.
that's the point. So there's nothing currently from 0 to 199, there's currently
Yeah,
nothing.
that's your by right at that point. You're moving right onto building permits. You're bypassing planning.
And we don't propose to change that. We're proposing to keep that. Everything less than 2,000 square feet is permissible by right, just building permits.
Right.
Anything above 2,000 square feet goes
to the
from a
AUP.
CUP to an AUP.
That's the proposed change.
Right, and
And
there's,
the commission is saying you create a third tier where less than 2,000 is by right, between 2,000 and 5,000 is AUP, 5,000 or anything
Right.
greater than 5,000 be a CUP.
yeah, I don't think we need that. And then the A-frame issue here, you put for outdoor retail displays.
Those are two separate things. So A-frame signs is one element that would now be allowed. It would still require a permit from our planning
Right.
department, as well as outdoor retail sales. Think of like, merchandise racks.
Can we get it for, what's wrong with having restaurants in there as well?
For,
A-frames.
A-frames would be allowed.
Under retail, they're
everybody.
same, retail and restaurant.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah, so for all.
okay.
Yeah.
All right, I'm good with closing public hearing.
Okay, just want to make sure, does anybody else in public want to speak to this? Okay, then I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Already moved.
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor?
All right,
Okay. Any other additional questions?
we can have questions, but
Okay.
I'll make a motion, or Councilmember Baji,
I'll make a motion to.
you have something?
Staff's recommendations by introduced by title only ordinance number 3258-23 and ordinance number 3257-23 and accept the mitigated negative declaration.
I'll second that. I would like to see, would you like to allow I would like to allow to reduce the CUP requirement for outdoor dining to an AUP for 400 square feet or less, and then a CUP for 401 square feet or above, to see if we can get any sort of outdoor dining on there.
Why would you impose a requirement? I'd reject that. I don't believe in an area where you're trying to get outdoor activity, you're trying to incentivize streamlining to have an administrative review process over a super small, right?
So as far as I understand right now, we don't even allow outdoor dining in these areas. That's from
No,
what
we
I
do.
understand.
We do allow outdoor dining, but if it's greater than 150 square feet, it triggers a conditional use permit. And so we're proposing to amend that and say you
For
can
outdoor
have
dining though.
Yeah, outdoor dining.
For anything greater than 150, so it'd still be similar to what we did for the restaurants. It would still it'd be by right under 150
By right
square
under
feet.
150.
And then for anything greater than 150 square feet, it would go to an
AUP.
AUP as opposed to a
Okay, so
CUP.
extend that, excuse me, so change that to 400 square feet. Just change it to 400 square feet.
By right, or for 150 to 400 be AUP, and then anything greater than 400 be CUP? Is that what you're saying?
I don't think that's right.
Because right now
This
it's,
is more permissive, isn't it?
right now 150 square feet or less is by right, and then from there it goes to a CUP. What we're
I'd rather
suggesting
do
is it
two
goes to an
parking,
AUP.
I'd rather do 2 parking spots, because that's really what works, is 2 square parking spots. Because in the village, if you do 1 parking spot, this doesn't work. That's 10 by 8, that's 10 times 8, 80 square feet-ish.
So you're saying to make
no, 100.
that permitted by right with no AUP. So you're trying to enlarge the amount of space that would
Yes.
create it by right.
Yes.
Okay, so that's a little different than what we have in the code. So you're suggesting that up to 400 square feet, it's by right, no AUP required. And then anything greater than 400 is an AUP,
Yeah.
not a
So
CUP.
what you have here, but increase, so to greater than,
I'm reject the amendment because I'm fine, I'm comfortable with what staff's recommending to streamline the advancement of this area.
but I'm looking to increase the square footage over allowing that to happen even more for more areas. I don't see this being allowed to incentivize outdoor dining. I want to have more places to be able to do that. If we're going to change the parking requirements in the next few months, which has been stated, then let's start that process now.
I will say, I mean, we could grow the by right requirement. I will say, I don't think the AUP is going to scare businesses unless we got really crazy behind the counter.
I'd rather have AUP,
Yeah.
right? Or just by right, just allow them to do that.
Yeah.
To
So-
increase that number then, just to 320, 400 square feet?
No, because, well, sorry.
No, that, I mean, we can write it in either way. So what you're suggesting is that the by right amount of square footage growing to, say, 320, 350 square feet or 400, and anything above that being an AUP, no CUP involved. The challenge then is just larger, has less ability to condition, right? So if we did go to 400 feet, staff can't say, hey, listen, you got to turn the sound off at 10 PM, or you can't have outdoor, you can't have outdoor dining. I
The
think
motion maker has already
you're saying.
said that he will not.
Yeah, but I can always make a substitute motion.
Well, then you have to make a
Don't
substitute.
Riviera my ACAP.
Yeah.
Well, the Riviera is working fantastic.
Hang on,
so-
guys.
But the
Hang on.
Riviera
I would work
is
it.
situated
Guys,
directly
yeah,
next
guys.
to residents.
Okay.
That's the way
They
that-
actually are, actually.
Hang
right next to
on,
restaurants.
hang on. Okay. So the motioner has not accepted your amendment. Would you like to make another
Pro
amendment?
Tem?
Is there a second?
Is there a second on Councilmember Rabaji's?
I would
A
like to
friendly
make,
amendment? I'm sorry, go ahead, Councilmember Kaludovich.
I was going to offer a friendly amendment to Councilman Obaji to include Planning Commission's recommendation about the pedestrian bicycle access between adjacent commercial and all types of residential.
Well, okay.
Because it's going to have a buy-in from all the residents anyway.
I appreciate that. It's a pointless change because nobody on the ACAP lives either in the VCR or on Matthews, but there is no single family home bordering Artesia Boulevard. So we can make the change or not make the change. It's not going to make a difference at all whatsoever. So,
There is bordering aviation, but not artesian.
okay.
But, okay. Councilmember Barrett, did you?
I mean, the other point, actually from a legal standpoint, if you have a single family home and all of a sudden you decide that you open up your wall for public ingress and egress, the public has an easement over your property. Who wants to give up their property right and
Have a
have
choice.
an easement? Sure.
It's
I
a
mean,
yes or
yeah,
no.
but that's fine. I'll accept that amendment. Go for it.
You will accept the amendment?
Yeah.
Okay. Councilmember Barrett, did you want to make a friendly amendment as well, or I guess not, or you'd have to make a substitute motion at this point?
Well, I would like to try to make a friendly amendment if procedurally proper.
Sure, go ahead.
All right. Friendly amendment to Councilmember Obaji's motion to remove the open space requirement for projects over 15,000 square feet. If at an FAR of 0.6, that's going to be about 900 feet of buildable space that's going to be taken away from a potential developer, the next grub house. If we end up at 0.75 FAR, we're looking at slicing away, more than 1,000 square feet of space. And I don't want an entrepreneur developer to move on when, they have this grand vision and they look at the code and they say, you know what, or we're going to Inglewood or somewhere else. I will point out the ACAP does envision the city acquiring property, acquiring open space and helping in that process. And to city manager Mike Wazanski's point, I think most entrepreneurs who come in are going to want to incorporate some kind of outdoor type component. I'm just very leery about, kind of cramming this one down at this fragile time. And so that's my friendly amendment to remove the.
Do you accept the friendly amendment?
If I can respond, Councilmember Barron, I don't really think it's a threat to any projects because it's not realistic to come into existence right now. Where I do think it's realistic to come into existence if we do move to a 1.5 FAR, and now rather than end up with a big block with a little bit of open space built there. So that's what I have in mind for the open space requirement and why I favor preserving it. I don't think it's going to make a bit of a difference in the next year or two here.
Could we table before I debated?
No, if you want to table it, you have to make a separate motion to table.
What do you mean table?
To kind of hold off for now. I'd like to speak to some of the professionals in the industry, circle back to the people at Grub House and others to, find out what are the real world impacts of this and any unintended consequences. And I don't know if that's been done. And the 10% seems a little subjective or arbitrary. I don't know where that number comes from. So that's my hard sell to you.
Okay. Are there any substitute motions? Any other substitute motions on the floor?
If my amendment wasn't accepted, I'll make a substitute.
Okay, Councilmember.
What did he say?
Are there any substitute motions?
If my amendment was not accepted, I'll make a substitute motion.
Okay, go ahead.
It's to approve the recommendations of staff in the ordinances with the exception of the open space requirement.
Okay, is there a second? Okay, the substitute motion fails. Are there any other amendments? Okay, there is a motion on the floor. All those in favor? Let's go roll call vote. Councilmember Nierenheim.
Aye.
Councilmember Kalajarovich.
Aye.
Councilmember Obaji.
Aye.
Councilmember Barrett.
Aye.
And I myself. The motion passes 5-0. Thank you. Okay.
Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. Okay, on to city manager items.
Mayor Pro Tem,
Yes.
read the
Oh,
ordinances.
yes, please do. Thank you. It's an ordinance. Thank you.
No problem. Introduced by title only, ordinance number 3258-23, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Redondo Beach, California, for a general plan amendment to activate and make consistent the Artesia and Aviation Corridors Area Plan with the City of Redondo Beach General Plan concerning floor area ratio and preferred land use uses and design, and adoption of the Associated California Environmental Quality Act mitigated negative declaration, and introduced by title only, ordinance number 3257-23, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Redondo Beach, California, to activate and make consistent the Artesia and Aviation Corridors Area Plan with the City of Redondo Beach zoning ordinance concerning entitlement procedures, floor area ratio, office development standards, signage, access wall development standards, outdoor retail sales, outdoor dining, and usable public open space, and adoption of the Associated California Environmental Quality Act mitigated negative declaration. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a mouthful. Thank you, Melissa. Okay, city manager items.
Here we go. Just a couple. Wanted to let you know that we've got two things on the calendar this month. On July 25th, the council will be not having a normal council meeting, but will be instead interviewing petitioner commissioner applicants. That process is flowing through the city clerk's office. If there are interested parties out there, please get your interest into the office and the council members as quickly as possible. So that's happening on July 25th. We won't have closed session or any other open session items. It'll be purely the applicant interviews. And then next week, I think it's important to note, we're going to have two very critical items. One, the residential design guidelines, or objective standards as they are modernly known. That will be a substantive discussion. That is not a public hearing, but a discussion item that would then be followed by a public hearing based on your direction. And then we will also be reviewing the conceptual design that has been prepared for the Waterfront Education Center. So those are the two big items next week. There are other items coming, but from a substantive standpoint, those are the big ones on the agenda. I'm trying to make a commitment as part of my city manager items to foreshadow upcoming items where possible, so we can give you all and the public some additional notice. So that's all I have this evening.
And also, we are going to go to every second meeting of the month to closed session.
Beginning in August, we couldn't do it this month, of course, because we missed the meeting on the 4th due to the holiday, but beginning on what will be August 8th, we will have a very light, if any, open session agenda. The focus of the evening will be our Rolodex of closed session matters. That unfortunately seems to ever grow.
As we see tonight.
Yes.
Okay, on to mayor and city council items. Councilmember Narenheim, do you have any referrals to staff?
I do not have any referrals to staff.
Okay, Councilmember Kalajerovich.
No, thank you.
Councilmember Robaji.
I'd like to agendize discussion of amending the RBMC 2-9.101 regarding reducing the frequency of the minimum required number of meetings of commissions of the city.
Okay, we can try to find a time to get that on.
It's not a rush. It's as expedient as the staff would like that.
It is worth discussing. It does create conflict, and as Ron mentioned earlier, the rigidity of the current standard is a challenge. So,
So this is an ordinance update?
it would be, yes, modification of the ordinance.
Is this something we can put on a strategic plan?
We could. I mean, we won't be back doing strategic planning for quite some time, but it's a matter of priority. Right now, every commission is technically supposed to meet once a month or more if they have special need, like the Planning Commission typically does. In years past, we have brought forward resolutions to temporarily suspend that standard. We have talked about an ordinance change to permanentize different meeting cycles for different commissions. There is at least one commission right now that meets every other month. That's the Public Art Commission. As has been pointed out, there isn't a lot of flexibility in the cancellation process in the ordinance. I think it's just sort of silent on it, candidly. But as anybody who's been a commissioner understands, there are times when there just isn't much to discuss, and it makes sense to have a cancellation. So flexibility would be good, and it's worth a discussion, I think.
Is there a second on the discussion? Anybody?
Second.
Okay.
With everything that's going on, is this a high value?
It's not something we're going to have to in 2 months. It's going to have to come back. It's going to need to come back in due course.
And I think that's what he's saying.
Yeah, but I will say, if there were changes made, to your point, I think where you're heading, we've got a lot on our plate.
Right.
If there are circumstances where it makes sense to meet on a bi-monthly basis because there isn't business for certain commissions, or it makes sense to have some flexibility in how we schedule those meetings, that actually might be accretive to workflow in other areas because it's reducing burden.
I see Brandy shaking her head.
I don't think it's going to work out for the planning commission, but for just about every other commission, there's probably opportunity.
Like 2 or 3 per month.
Yeah.
We do have a motion on the floor. I'm going to do a roll call vote. Councilmember Narenheim.
Aye.
Councilmember Kalijorovic.
Aye.
Councilmember Rabaji.
Aye.
Councilmember Barrett.
Aye.
And myself, aye as well. Any other referrals, staff?
Not this time. Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Barrett, do you have any referrals to staff?
I had a question. Rooftop dining was mentioned earlier tonight, and if our city manager can just remind me, where are we on exploring rooftop dining?
Yeah, I believe that is being studied possibly as part of the zoning ordinance and general plan update, but let me get back to you on that.
Okay.
It's not one of our immediate items. It takes longer term review and analysis. It's a deeper issue.
Okay.
Anything else, Scott?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, can I get a motion then to recess to closed session, please?
So move.
And we'll list what items we'll be
Okay,
recessing to.
Anybody else have any objections to that? Okay, we are recessed again to closed session.
And specifically, what we'll be recessing to continue and to discuss are items F2, F3, F4, F8, and F9.
Okay,
One of the items on F10, we will be tabling for another week.
okay, super. All right, we are recessed. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Just a reminder, everybody, we'll have Wait a minute. We need one more. Yeah? Yeah. I don't even know if we need to sit.
My shortest meeting.
No, it is. Okay, we have 3 people here. We now have 4. So quick roll call. Councilmember Narenheim.
Here.
Councilmember Nurkowicz.
Here.
Councilmember Rabaji.
Here.
I'm here. Okay, any items out of?
Karen's here too.
Yes.
Aaron as well, too. I didn't hear him.
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem, we have two items to report. An item F8, the case listed under that matter, the council unanimously authorized the city attorney to defend the city. And then under item F9, the city council unanimously authorized the city attorney to pursue and prepare either an amicus brief on the city's behalf or in partnership with other municipalities for a petition to cert, I think, at the Supreme Court level, I believe is the phrase. I'm happy to take advice from other attorneys here, if that's the correct phrase. Petition for cert. And that's it under F9.
Okay, great. Then I'll take a motion to adjourn to July 18th.
Second, home move.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, we'll see you next week.
For adjourned.
You're adjourned.
Thanks, Mike.